Marcus Chen turned off his mining drill and wiped the sweat from his forehead. The asteroid Kepler 442c was not a friendly place. The air recyclers worked hard to keep the small mining station breathable, but they always made strange noises. Marcus had been alone on this rock for 6 months, digging for rare metals that Earth companies paid good money for. He used to be a soldier. 10 years in the Earth Defense Force had taught him how to fight, how to survive, and how to follow orders. But Marcus got tired of taking orders from people who never left their comfortable offices on Earth. So he became a miner. Out here, the only orders came from himself. The alarm on his suit beeped. Something was wrong with the scanner. Marcus looked at the small screen on his wrist. There was a large metal object about 2 kilometers away. It had not been there yesterday. That's weird, Marcus said to himself. He talked to himself a lot these days. When you live alone for months, your own voice becomes your best friend. Marcus climbed into his small rover and drove toward the signal. The asteroid's weak gravity made driving easy, but he had to be careful not to bounce too high. One time he had jumped so hard that he almost flew off into space. The metal object was a spaceship, but not like any human ship Marcus had ever seen. It was long and curved like a giant insect. The hull was cracked in several places and one wing was completely broken. Black burn marks covered the sides. This ship had crashed hard. Marcus parked his rover and walked closer. The ship was about 50 meters long, with a design that looked both beautiful and scary. The metal was a dark green color that seemed to change when the light hit it different ways. Strange symbols were carved into the hull, but Marcus could not read them. He found a hole in the side of the ship big enough to crawl through. Marcus turned on his helmet light and looked inside. The air was thin but breathable according to his suit's sensors. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. The inside of the ship was just as alien as the outside. Everything was curved and organic looking, like the inside of a giant shell. There were no right angles anywhere. The walls had a texture that reminded Marcus of tree bark, but smoother. He followed a corridor toward what looked like the main cabin. Strange sounds came from ahead. Not machine sounds, but something else. Something that sounded almost like crying. Marcus found them in what must have been the bridge. 3 small creatures huddled together in the corner. They were about the size of human children, maybe 8 or 9 years old. But they were definitely not human. The creatures looked like a cross between insects and small people. They had 6 arms each, thin and delicate. Their skin was covered with small scales that caught the light like jewels. Large compound eyes took up most of their faces, and their mouths were small and round. They were beautiful in a way that Marcus had never seen before. 2 of them were clearly hurt. One had a deep cut on its side that leaked blue blood. The other held one arm at a strange angle, probably broken. The third one, the smallest, was trying to help the others while making soft clicking sounds. When Marcus stepped into the room, all 3 creatures froze. Their big eyes stared at him with obvious fear. The smallest one moved in front of the others, trying to protect them even though it was clearly terrified. Marcus slowly removed his helmet and set it on the ground. He held up his hands to show he was not carrying any weapons. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creatures did not understand his words, but they seemed to understand his tone. The smallest one tilted its head, studying Marcus carefully. It made a series of clicks and chirps, probably trying to communicate. Marcus had basic medical training from his army days. He could see that the injured creatures needed help soon or they might die. He pulled out his first aid kit and showed it to them. "Medicine," he said, pointing to the kit and then to their wounds. The smallest creature looked at the others, then back at Marcus. It made a decision that surprised him. Slowly, carefully, it moved aside and let Marcus approach the injured ones. Marcus worked as gently as he could. The creature's blood was blue instead of red, but it clotted just like human blood when he applied pressure. He used his bandages to wrap the cut on the first creature's side. The second one let him check its arm. It was definitely broken, but Marcus was able to make a simple splint. While he worked, the creatures watched him carefully. They seemed amazed that this strange alien was helping them instead of hurting them. The smallest one even helped by holding bandages and handing Marcus tools from his kit. When Marcus finished, he sat back and looked at the 3 young aliens. They looked back at him with what he thought might be gratitude. The smallest one reached out very slowly and touched Marcus's hand with one of its delicate fingers. The touch was warm and gentle. Marcus made a decision that would change his life forever. These creatures were young and hurt and scared. They needed help. And out here, millions of kilometers from the nearest human settlement, Marcus was the only help they were going to get. He stood up and gestured for them to follow him. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you somewhere safe." The creatures looked at each other, having a quick conversation in their clicking language. Finally, the smallest one nodded and helped the others stand up. They followed Marcus out of their crashed ship. Getting them back to his mining station was not easy. His rover was only meant for one person, so Marcus had to make 2 trips. He took the most injured creature first, then came back for the other 2. They seemed nervous about the rover, but they trusted Marcus enough to get in. Marcus's mining station was small but comfortable. It had a main room with a kitchen and work area, a bedroom, and a small medical bay. He set up beds for the creatures in the main room and gave them water and some simple food. They ate carefully, testing each bite before swallowing. As the creatures settled in, Marcus realized what he had done. These were obviously alien beings, possibly from a hostile species. Earth regulations said he should report any alien contact immediately. There would be scientists and soldiers and politicians asking questions and making decisions. But looking at the 3 young aliens resting on his makeshift beds, Marcus knew he could not turn them over to the authorities. Not yet. They were hurt and scared and far from home. They needed time to heal. Marcus set up his computer to monitor space traffic in the area. If these creatures had family or friends looking for them, he wanted to know about it before anyone else found his station. That night, as the aliens slept, Marcus watched them carefully. The smallest one kept making soft sounds like it was having bad dreams. Without thinking, Marcus reached over and gently patted its shoulder. The creature calmed down and slept peacefully. Marcus smiled. Maybe he was making a huge mistake. Maybe helping these aliens would get him in serious trouble. But for the first time in months, he did not feel alone anymore. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, someone was probably looking for these 3 young creatures. Marcus hoped they were friends, not enemies. But either way, he would protect his unexpected guests for as long as they needed protection. It was what any decent person would do. Marcus woke up to the sound of clicking and chirping. The 3 alien youngsters were awake and talking to each other in their strange language. When they saw Marcus getting up, they became quiet and watched him carefully. "Good morning," Marcus said, stretching. He had slept on the floor to give them the comfortable beds. His back was sore, but he did not mind. The smallest alien tilted its head and tried to copy his sound. "Good morning," it said slowly. Its voice was high and musical, like wind chimes. Marcus smiled. "Yes, good morning. You're learning already." Over the next few days, Marcus learned that the aliens were incredibly smart. They picked up human words quickly and seemed to understand complex ideas even when they could not say them yet. Marcus started teaching them simple English words, pointing to objects and saying their names. The aliens had their own names too, but they were long series of clicks and musical sounds that Marcus could not pronounce. So he started calling them by simple names that seemed to fit their personalities. The smallest one, who seemed to be the leader, he called Shimmer, because its scales changed colors when it moved. The one with the injured side he called Echo because it liked to repeat sounds Marcus made. The one with the broken arm he called Dart, because even injured it was the fastest of the 3. Marcus learned that they were not just random aliens. Through their growing ability to speak English and his basic translation computer, he discovered they came from something called the Zephyrian Hive. They were part of a scouting mission that had gone wrong when their ship hit space debris. More importantly, these were not ordinary young aliens. They were what Shimmer called nest-born, which seemed to mean they were very important to their people. Marcus got the feeling they were something like royalty. "Queen Mother will look for us," Shimmer said one day while Marcus was checking its friend's healing wounds. "She will be very angry if we are gone too long." "Your Queen Mother?" Marcus asked. "Is she your leader?" "She is everything," Shimmer replied seriously. "She is the mind of the hive. She is the heart of the people." "We are her children," this worried Marcus. If these young aliens were important enough that a queen would come looking for them, then Marcus was in more trouble than he had thought. But he was also learning about Zephyrian culture, and some of what he learned made him feel better. The Zephyrians had very strict rules about protecting the young. Anyone who hurt a young Zephyrian would face terrible punishment, but anyone who helped and protected young Zephyrians would be honored. The problem was that Marcus was not a Zephyrian, so those rules might not apply to him. As the days passed, the three youngsters healed quickly. Dart's arm was getting stronger, and Echo's side wound was closing nicely. They were also becoming more relaxed around Marcus. They helped him with his work around the station, and they were surprisingly good at solving technical problems. "Your machines are very simple," Dart said one day while helping Marcus repair a water recycler. "But they are also very clever. Humans think differently than we do." Marcus was constantly amazed by how quickly they learned. Within 2 weeks, all three were speaking English well enough to have real conversations. They told him about their home world, which was covered in giant cities that looked like enormous insect hives. They described their people as being organized like a huge family, with everyone having a specific job to do. But Marcus also learned some troubling things. The Zephyrians were warriors. They had fought wars with other alien species and won. They did not trust outsiders, and they had never had contact with humans before. "What will your Queen Mother do when she finds me?" Marcus asked one evening as they shared dinner. The three youngsters looked at each other nervously. Shimmer spoke carefully. "She will want to know why you helped us. Our people, they do not always trust other species." "But you saved us," Echo added quickly. "You made us well when we were hurt. That means something important to our people." Marcus hoped so, because his computer was picking up signs that ships were searching the area, not human ships. Alien ships moving in patterns that suggested they were looking for something. The Zephyrians were coming. Marcus spent more time teaching the youngsters about human culture, and they taught him about theirs. He learned that Zephyrian society was built around the idea of the hive protecting itself. Individual Zephyrians were less important than the group, but the young were sacred. Protecting the young was the most important duty any Zephyrian could have. "There is an old law," Shimmer explained. "Anyone who protects royal young from danger becomes nest guard. It is a great honor, even if that person is not a Zephyrian," Marcus asked. Shimmer looked uncertain. "The law does not say. It has never happened before." Marcus taught them human ideas about friendship and loyalty. He explained that humans often helped each other not because of laws or duties, but because it was the right thing to do. The youngsters found this idea strange but interesting. "You helped us because you wanted to?" Dart asked. "Not because someone told you to?" "That's right," Marcus said. "I helped you because you needed help. It's that simple." The three youngsters spent a long time thinking about this. Marcus could see that the idea of helping strangers without orders or laws telling you to do it was completely new to them. As the alien ships got closer, Marcus made preparations. He set up emergency supplies and planned escape routes just in case things went badly. But he also did something else. He recorded a message explaining what had happened and how he had tried to help the youngsters. If the worst happened, at least there would be a record of the truth. The youngsters knew the ships were coming too. They could sense things that Marcus could not, probably some kind of natural ability their species had. They became more worried as each day passed. "Marcus," Shimmer said one night, using his name carefully like it was something precious. "When Queen Mother comes, you should run away. Hide. Our people might not understand what you did." Marcus looked at the three young aliens who had become his friends. "I'm not running away," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving you to face this alone." "But you could be hurt," Echo said, its scales flickering with distress colors. "We do not want you to be hurt because of us. And I don't want you to think that humans abandon their friends when things get dangerous," Marcus replied. "We're going to face this together." The youngsters looked at each other and made soft clicking sounds. Finally, Shimmer nodded. "Together," it agreed. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance. But now some of those moving lights were ships carrying warriors who might see Marcus as an enemy or a friend. Marcus did not know which it would be, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, he would not let anything hurt the three brave young aliens who had taught him that friendship could cross any distance, even the space between different species. The Queen was coming, and Marcus would be ready. The alarm screamed through Marcus's mining station. His computer had detected multiple ships entering the asteroid field. Large ships, armed ships, ships that moved with the deadly grace of hunters who had found their prey. Marcus ran to his control panel and checked the readings. 12 vessels, all of them bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships moved in a perfect formation, scanning every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every possible hiding place. "They're here," Marcus said quietly. The three youngsters crowded around him, looking at the screen. Their scales were changing colors rapidly, shifting between deep blues and bright yellows. Marcus had learned this meant they were scared and excited at the same time. "That is Queen Mother's ship," Shimmer said, pointing to the largest vessel on the screen. It was enormous, like a floating city made of the same organic curves as the youngsters' crashed scout ship. "She has brought the Royal Guard." Marcus watched the ships move closer. They were still several hours away, but they were definitely heading toward his asteroid. Somehow they had traced the path of the crashed scout ship. "We should tell them we're here," Dart said nervously. "If Queen Mother has to search for us, she will be even more angry." "Angry at who?" Marcus asked. "At you for crashing or at me for hiding you?" The youngsters looked at each other with their big compound eyes. None of them seemed sure about the answer. Marcus had been thinking about this moment for weeks. He could try to hide and hope the Zephyrian ships would not find his small mining station. He could try to run, though his little ship was not fast enough to escape. Or he could do something that might be very stupid but felt like the right choice. He could tell the truth. "I'm going to send them a message," Marcus announced. "Marcus, no," Echo said urgently. "You don't understand. Our people, they might think you captured us. They might attack first and ask questions later. Then I'll have to make sure they understand before they attack," Marcus replied. He sat down at his communication console and opened a channel on all frequencies. This message would not just go to the Zephyrian ships. It would be picked up by any human vessels in the area, and probably transmitted across half the galaxy before the day was over. Marcus was about to make himself the most famous human alive or the most dead. "This is Marcus Chen, human citizen and resident of mining station Kepler 4422C7, he began. "I am sending this message to the Zephyrian fleet currently approaching this position. I have 3 young Zephyrians under my protection. They were injured in a ship crash 3 weeks ago. I have cared for them and healed their wounds. They are safe and well." Marcus paused, looking at the 3 youngsters. They were staring at him with expressions he was learning to read. Amazement, gratitude, fear for his safety. "I know that our species have never met before," Marcus continued. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but I want you to know that these young ones have been treated with honor and respect. I have protected them as I would protect my own family. I return them to you freely, asking only that you judge my actions fairly." Marcus ended the transmission and sat back. Within minutes, every human government and military organization would know that first contact with an alien species had been made by a lone miner on a forgotten asteroid, and they would know that Marcus had just put himself completely at the mercy of an unknown alien queen. "Why did you do that?" Shimmer asked softly. "Because hiding makes me look guilty," Marcus said. "And I'm not guilty of anything except helping 3 young friends." The response came faster than Marcus expected. The largest Zephyrian ship changed course and headed directly for his asteroid. The other ships spread out in a search pattern, probably looking for any human military vessels that might be hiding nearby. Then Marcus's communication console came alive with an incoming transmission. The signal was strong and clear, but the voice that came through was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. It was definitely female, but deeper and more resonant than any human woman's voice. There was power in it, and authority, and something else that made Marcus's spine tingle with instinctive recognition of a natural predator. "Human Marcus Chen," the voice said, speaking perfect English. "I am Queen Vexisthera of the Zephyrian Royal Hive. You claim to hold my offspring. Prove this claim." Marcus looked at the youngsters. "She wants proof that you're really here and safe." Shimmer nodded and moved closer to the communication console. It began speaking in the rapid clicking language of its people. The conversation went on for several minutes, with Shimmer obviously explaining what had happened and how Marcus had helped them. When Shimmer finished, there was a long silence from the Zephyrian ship. Finally, Queen Vexithera spoke again, but this time in her own language. Even through the alien sounds, Marcus could hear relief in her voice. Then she switched back to English. "Human Marcus Chen, my offspring speak of your actions with great respect. This is..." Unexpected. I will come to your station to see for myself what you have done. Your Majesty, Marcus said, not sure if that was the right way to address an alien queen, but figuring politeness was always safe. I welcome you to my station. Your young ones will be very happy to see you. We will speak face to face, human, the queen replied, and then we will determine your fate. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with three very worried alien youngsters. She didn't sound angry, Marcus said hopefully. Queen Mother never sounds angry, Dart explained. She sounds like that when she is thinking very hard about something important. That could be good or bad for you. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus watched the Queen's ship approach his tiny mining station. As it got closer, he could see just how massive it really was. His entire asteroid could probably fit inside its cargo bay. When the ship was close enough, smaller vessels detached from it and flew toward the mining station. Marcus could see they were troop transports carrying what looked like heavily armed Zephyrian warriors. So much for a friendly meeting, Marcus muttered. But Shimmer shook its head. No, this is normal. Queen Mother always travels with guards. It does not mean she plans to fight. Marcus hoped the youngster was right, because in about an hour, he was going to be face to face with an alien queen, who had the power to start or prevent the first war between humans and Zephyrians, and his only allies were 3 young aliens who believed that doing the right thing should be enough to keep him alive. Marcus put on his best clothes and prepared to meet royalty. Human royalty was complicated enough. Alien royalty was going to be a whole new challenge. But as he looked at Shimmer, Echo, and Dart getting ready to reunite with their Queen Mother, Marcus felt something he had not expected. Pride. He had kept his word. He had protected them and kept them safe. Whatever happened next, he had done the right thing. Sometimes that had to be enough. The Queen was coming to his door. And Marcus Chen, former soldier turned asteroid miner, was about to make history. The airlock on Marcus's mining station had never been designed for visitors like these. 6 Zephyrian warriors entered first, each one nearly 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like it could stop bullets. Their compound eyes scanned every corner of the small station, looking for threats that did not exist. Behind them came Queen Vexithara herself. Marcus had thought the youngsters were beautiful, but the Queen was magnificent in a way that made him want to step back and bow at the same time. She was even taller than her warriors, with scales that shifted between deep purple and gold as she moved. Her forearms moved with perfect grace, and her compound eyes seemed to see everything at once. But what struck Marcus most was the intelligence in those alien eyes. This was not just a warrior or a ruler. This was a brilliant mind wrapped in a form that could probably tear him apart without effort. Queen Mother, Shimmer, Echo, and Dart rushed forward, making excited clicking sounds. The Queen's entire bearing changed as she saw them. The dangerous predator became a concerned mother in an instant. She knelt down and gathered all 3 youngsters in her forearms, speaking rapidly in her own language. Marcus could not understand the words, but he did not need to. Relief, love, and fierce protectiveness were universal languages. After several minutes, the Queen stood and turned her attention to Marcus. Her expression was unreadable, but Marcus felt like he was being examined by something that could see straight through to his soul. "You are smaller than I expected," she said finally. "Most people say that," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your Majesty." The Queen tilted her head, a gesture that reminded Marcus of Shimmer. "My offspring have told me much about you, human Marcus Chen. They say you found them injured and dying. They say you healed their wounds and protected them from harm. They say you asked for nothing in return." "That's right, Your Majesty." "Why?" Marcus had been expecting this question, but it was still hard to answer. How do you explain basic human decency to an alien queen? How do you make someone understand that helping others is just what people do? "Because they needed help," Marcus said simply. "Because they were hurt and scared and far from home. Because it was the right thing to do." Queen Vexthara stared at him for a long time. Her warriors remained perfectly still, but Marcus could feel their readiness to act if their queen gave the word. "The right thing," the Queen repeated slowly. "According to whose law? Whose authority?" "According to my own conscience, Your Majesty. Sometimes you don't need laws or authorities to tell you what's right. Sometimes you just know." This seemed to surprise the Queen. She spoke briefly to her warriors in the Zephyrian language, then turned back to Marcus. "My offspring also tell me that you learned our customs, that you studied our ways and showed them proper respect. How did you know to do this?" Marcus looked at the three youngsters who were watching the conversation with obvious worry. They taught me. They told me about your laws regarding the protection of the young. I wanted to make sure I was honoring your culture as well as helping them. Show me, the Queen commanded. Marcus was confused for a moment, then understood. The youngsters had taught him the formal gesture for accepting responsibility as a protector. He had practiced it many times, wanting to get it right. Marcus knelt on one knee and placed his right hand over his heart. With his left hand, he gestured toward the three youngsters. I accept the sacred duty of nest guard, he said in carefully practiced Zephyrian. I pledge my life to protect the royal young. I ask no reward but the honor of service. The Queen's compound eyes widened. Several of her warriors made surprised clicking sounds. Shimmer, Echo, and Dart looked amazed. You performed the ritual of claiming, the Queen said slowly. No outsider has ever learned our sacred ceremonies. No outsider has ever claimed our young as nest charge. Did I do something wrong? Marcus asked, still kneeling. Queen Vexithera looked at her offspring, then at her warriors, then back at Marcus. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Stand up, human Marcus Chen. Marcus stood, his heart pounding. He had no idea if he had just honored the Queen or accidentally declared war on her entire species. By the ancient laws of our people, the Queen continued, anyone who saves royal offspring and performs the ritual of claiming becomes nest guard to the royal family. This law was written long ago, when our species was young and the universe was smaller. She paused, studying Marcus carefully. The law does not specify that the nest guard must be Zephyrian. Marcus felt his knees go weak. What does that mean, Your Majesty? It means, Queen Vexithara said, that you have done something no being in recorded history has ever done. You have become the first alien nest guard in the history of our species. The Queen began walking around Marcus, looking at him from every angle like she was examining a very interesting puzzle. According to our law, a nest guard of royal blood cannot be harmed by any Zephyrian, cannot be imprisoned, cannot be forced to act against their conscience. A nest guard has the right to speak freely to the royal family, to offer counsel, and to be heard. Marcus swallowed hard. And the obligations? A nest guard is bound to the royal family for life. They cannot leave without permission. They must put the safety of the royal young above their own. They must be ready to die in defense of those under their protection. The Queen stopped directly in front of Marcus. The question is, do you accept these obligations willingly? Or did you perform the ritual without understanding its true meaning? Marcus looked at Shimmer, Echo, and Dart. 3 young aliens who had trusted him with their lives. 3 friends who had taught him that kindness could cross any barrier. I accept, Marcus said firmly. I understood what I was doing when I made that pledge. I meant every word. Queen Vexithara nodded slowly. Then by the ancient laws, by the sacred customs of our people, and by my authority as Queen of the Royal Hive, I formally recognize you as Nest Guard Marcus Chen, protector of royal blood. She turned to her warriors and spoke in rapid Zephyrian. The warriors immediately changed their postures, going from potential threats to respectful guards. One of them even bowed slightly to Marcus. You are now under my personal protection, the Queen continued. No harm may come to you while you serve the royal family, but you are also mine, human. Your life, your loyalty, your service, and all belong to the Hive now. Marcus felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into a completely unknown future. But when he looked at the 3 youngsters, his youngsters now, he knew he was making the right choice. I understand, Your Majesty. I am honored to serve. Queen Vexithara smiled, showing teeth that could probably bite through steel. But it was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of someone who had found something unexpected and valuable. Good, she said, because you and I have much to discuss. Your species and mine are about to become very interested in each other, and you, Marcus Chen, are going to help us make sure that interest does not turn into war. Marcus realized that his simple act of kindness had just changed the future of 2 entire species. He was no longer just a miner on a forgotten asteroid. He was a bridge between worlds, a translator between species, and the first human ever claimed by an alien queen. It was going to be an interesting life. 6 months after Queen Vexithara's arrival, Marcus stood in what had once been his simple mining station and marveled at how much his world had changed. The asteroid now hosted the first human Zephyrian embassy, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and tunnels that accommodated both species. Marcus wore robes that marked his unique position as nest guard, a rank that existed outside normal Zephyrian hierarchy. The fabric was woven with threads that changed color based on his emotional state, a Zephyrian innovation that had taken some getting used to. Right now, the robes showed calm blue with threads of gold, indicating contentment and purpose. The Earth delegation arrives in 2 hours, Shimmer announced, entering Marcus's new office. The youngster had grown noticeably in the past months and was beginning to show the intelligence and grace that would make it a leader among its people. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked. Today would mark the formal beginning of diplomatic relations between humans and Zephyrians, with representatives from both species meeting on neutral ground. "Are you?" Shimmer countered with the directness that Marcus had learned to appreciate. "You will be speaking for both sides in many ways. That is a heavy responsibility." Marcus nodded. His role as nest guard had evolved into something unprecedented. He served as cultural translator, diplomatic advisor, and living proof that cooperation between species was possible. Queen Vexthera had come to rely on his insights into human thinking, while Earth's governments wanted to understand the alien perspective he had gained. "Nest guard Marcus," Echo called from the doorway. It now served as Marcus's official assistant, a position that carried considerable status in Zephyrian society. "Queen Mother requests your presence in the royal chamber." Marcus found Queen Vexthera in the embassy's most impressive room, a vast space that combined human architecture with Zephyrian organic design. She was studying holographic displays that showed the approaching human fleet, 12 ships carrying diplomats, scientists, and unfortunately military observers. "Your people are cautious," the Queen observed without turning around. "They bring weapons to a peaceful meeting." "They're scared," Marcus explained. "This is their first contact with a truly advanced alien species. They don't know if you see them as friends or food." The Queen's scales shifted to amused yellow. "And which do you think we see them as?" "Friends, I hope. But friends who could become dangerous if they feel threatened." Queen Vexthera finally turned to face him. Over the months, Marcus had learned to read her expressions better than any human had ever read in aliens. Right now, she was concerned but hopeful. "I have made a decision," she announced. "Today I will formally adopt you as a member of the royal family." Marcus nearly dropped the tablet he was carrying. "Your Majesty, What does that mean exactly?" "It means you will have the authority to speak for the Zephyrian hive in all dealings with your species. It means you will be considered my son, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. And it means," her scales shifted to serious purple, "that any attack on you will be considered an attack on the royal family itself." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If Earth's representatives tried to arrest him or force him to return to human space, it could start a war. But it also meant he would have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the most powerful alien species humanity had ever encountered. "Why?" Marcus asked. "Because you understand both sides. Because you have proven your loyalty, and because my offspring trust you completely." The Queen gestured toward a viewing window where Shimmer, Echo, and Dart could be seen working with human and Zephyrian technicians to prepare for the diplomatic meeting. "They have grown wise under your protection." Marcus watched the 3 youngsters he had saved from a crashed ship. They were no longer the frightened, injured creatures he had found. Shimmer was developing into a brilliant strategist. Echo had become an expert in interspecies communication. Dart was showing remarkable talent for engineering and technology. "They don't need my protection anymore," Marcus observed. "No," Queen Vexthera agreed. "But their future children will. And their children's children. You have not just protected 3 young Zephyrians, Marcus Chen. You have helped shape the future of our species' relationship with yours." The ceremony was brief but profound. In the presence of the Queen's highest advisors and the 3 youngsters who had started it all, Marcus knelt as Queen Vexthera placed her hands on his shoulders and spoke the ancient words that made him a prince of the Zephyrian royal hive. "From this day forward," she declared, "you are Prince Marcus of the royal hive, nest guard eternal and speaker for 2 worlds. May your wisdom guide us toward a future of peace and cooperation." When the human delegation arrived, they found something none of them had expected. Instead of a lone human held captive by aliens, they met a confident diplomat who greeted them in the name of both species. "Welcome to Embassy Station," Prince Marcus said to the surprised human ambassadors. "I am Marcus Chen, and I speak for both humanity and the Zephyrian royal hive. We have much to discuss. The negotiations took 3 days. There were moments of tension when cultural misunderstandings threatened to derail everything. There were heated arguments about territory, trade rights, and military limitations. But every time discussions broke down, Marcus was able to bridge the gap with his unique understanding of both sides. The Zephyrians wanted assurance that humans would not expand aggressively into their territory. The humans wanted guarantees that the technologically superior aliens would not conquer Earth. Marcus helped both sides understand that cooperation was more valuable than conquest. The breakthrough came when Shimmer, Echo, and Dart presented their joint research project, a new type of faster-than-light communication system that combined human engineering with Zephyrian biotechnology. It was proof that the two species could create something together that neither could achieve alone. "This is our future," Marcus told the assembled diplomats from both species. "Not conquest or submission, but partnership. We have different strengths, different perspectives, different ways of solving problems. Together, we can accomplish things that neither species could do alone." The final treaty was signed in the same room where Marcus had first met Queen Vexithera. It established trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and most importantly, a framework for ongoing cooperation between the two species. As the human ships prepared to depart, taking news of the successful negotiations back to Earth, Marcus stood with his 3 young charges. No longer charges, really, but partners in building a new future. "Do you think it will work?" Dart asked, watching the human ships move away from the asteroid. "I think we've given it the best chance possible," Marcus replied. "The rest is up to both our species to prove they can honor what we've built here." Shimmer placed one of its delicate hands on Marcus's arm. "Thank you," it said simply, "for everything." Marcus smiled, looking out at the stars where ships from 2 worlds were carrying the seeds of a new era. He had started as a simple miner trying to help 3 injured youngsters. Now he was a prince, a diplomat, and a bridge between species. But in his heart, he was still just a human who had chosen to do the right thing when it mattered most. Sometimes that was all it took to change the galaxy. Queen Vexithara joined them at the viewing window, her scales showing the deep contentment that meant a job well done. "You have given my people something precious," she told Marcus. "Hope for a future where we are not alone in the universe." "And you've given humanity something just as valuable," Marcus replied. "You've shown us that we can be worthy of friendship with species far greater than ourselves." Outside, the stars shone with the same ancient light they always had, but now those stars connected 2 species bound not by conquest or fear, but by the simple truth that kindness, courage, and understanding could overcome any barrier. Marcus Chen, the miner who had become a prince, watched the birth of a new age and knew that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion could have the greatest consequences of all. The future was bright with possibility, and it belonged to both their peoples now.